Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us for Spotlight on Senior Issues. This series of programs continues to look at topics of interest to senior citizens, perhaps also their family members, as we look at our growing population of senior citizens. Joining me again today is Kelly Hook, a certified senior advisor. We've worked on a number of these shows together, trying to basically, I guess we're educating, letting people know more about what's out there for senior citizens.
And the cool thing is we're getting educated ourselves.
That's right. I'm learning a lot through doing these shows and so forth. Well, today I thought, since you are a certified senior advisor, help define what that is, but also later in the show, talk about how the generations really have to work together and perhaps the younger generation helping the older generation.
Okay, all right. Well, I think it's certified senior advisor is not something that we see a lot around here. In fact, I was looking in this area other than Springfield, so sort of the Joplin area, Carthage area, Lamar. I think there's maybe 4 certified senior advisors in this area. A certified senior advisor does not open a shop as a certified senior advisor. What they will do is do the certification in addition to something else. So you will see insurance agents maybe who do a lot of business with seniors that will have an additional certification as a certified senior advisor. There's financial planners, lawyers that get this certification, home care agency owners or nurses, social workers,
medical side of things.
Medical
right?
side of things sometimes get this designation, but it's not something that you just send $1,000 to an agency and then you get your certification.
It's not one on the door. Right.
It's not one of those things.
So it's a process.
It's a process.
So you've gone through, I imagine, a lot of education yourself to maintain
yes.
this title.
The Society for Certified Senior Advisors actually has a training program, and the thing I like about it, I am a registered nurse, and so I know that I've had an education that's focused in on people's medical issues. But when it came to some of the other things like the social aspects of aging or the financial and legal aspects or funeral planning or government assistance that's available for seniors and those types of things, I didn't have a lot of experience in those areas because I was really siloed into what we would do in the hospital for seniors. Yeah, health concerns, what's your medical problem. I didn't necessarily know who to tell you to go to if you wanted to talk to somebody about, say, funeral planning.
So it's really broadening the horizons for
Absolutely.
people that, even you mentioned earlier, the financial planners, they may know the finances, but then they also need to know these other areas.
And they will have on-site training programs as well as online. I chose to do mine online. And it took me about 6 months of going through online tutorials and lectures.
Right.
And then I had to actually sit an exam, and I had to go over to Carthage Tech to sit my exam. And I had to pass that exam.
So proctored exam,
Absolutely,
just like somebody would do
exam.
coming for distance learning of the university.
Right. And then I did pass my exam. I was very thankful for that. And I did receive the certification back in 2000, I believe it was 2012 that I received my certification. Once you have your certification, though, it's not done there. You actually have to do continuing education on specific topics related to seniors. So, like, for instance, I can't go to do my nursing continuing education credits on maybe surgery and it count for this. It has
to be senior citizen related.
Right, senior related.
Or
you have to do some kind of activity or actually maybe do a training for seniors. In fact, I'm kind of hoping that this series might help me with my CEUs.
So you're doing some educational.
I'm doing educational, that's right. And there's also a professional code of responsibility. So it's not just that you are competent in your field of practice, but you also are going to conduct your business honestly and with integrity.
They have some guidelines that say, if you want this honor of having this title, we want you to follow these guidelines and tie that together.
So I think it's very important if you are looking for a certified senior advisor in your area. If you go to, we'll have them pull up the website.
We have a website, CSA.us.
Right, right, and this is the official website for the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. And if you scroll down about halfway down the page there, you can see where it says find a CSA with the CSA locator. And if you'll go in there, and I just go down usually to the zip code area, and I'll put in a zip code, and then you do a search. it is going to bring up anybody with that designation in the area.
Okay.
And oh, look at
Your
there.
name's
I
right
think
there on
my
the
name
list.
is
Yeah.
right there.
So then you
Isn't
can find
that
out more
special?
information about that person.
Right.
And
Their website usually. Also, it helps you know what area of expertise they are in,
Okay.
because you might be looking for a financial planner, say, who is a certified senior advisor, or maybe a lawyer or an insurance agent. Or you could be looking for a home care provider that
Right.
is. So they're not necessarily in one industry.
So for the people who just may have missed that, it's csa.us, and that'll
Right.
give them that information. So your role as a certified senior advisor, explain how then you get into interacting maybe with the families or the patients or clients. How
Okay.
what that is.
Well, in my everyday job, I actually own a home care company, and I felt like becoming a certified senior advisor was going to be a way for me to provide additional help to my clients and their families, and to potential clients or families that came in just with questions. And so for me, I use honestly this information every day. And one of the things that they really train us to do is develop a really strong referral network. So being a certified senior advisor does not mean that you know everything.
You don't have all the answers.
Absolutely not. Please don't call me thinking I'm going to know everything, because I don't. I don't even begin to. But what I have done and what I continue to do is grow a network of honest people with integrity, people with a lot of competence that I have done work with, let's say funeral directors, lawyers, financial planners, other home care agencies that I trust because I've worked with them, home health agencies. I can continue on and on naming people, and people can come to me, and we could be discussing perhaps their dad or mom who needs home care, but then I also find out that the dad and mom don't have a will and they don't have a power of attorney, and lo and behold, that is when the certified senior advisor education comes in, and I can say, well, guess what? Those are some things that you really, in addition to the home care,
Right.
you need to get these things in order too. And here's a couple of people that I really have worked with before and and they're good people. Why don't you give them a call and see if they can help you with those things? Because I can't personally write a will out for somebody. Okay, but I, as a certified senior advisor, need to know people that I can refer my potential clients off to, or people that just come in off the street. I have had a lot of people that have come or called me strictly with questions, and they never have become our clients. But we do not charge, and most certified senior advisors do not charge for advice. It is just something that we do in addition to our everyday work.
So a reference source for a lot of people, and you feel
Yes.
that perhaps sometimes as people are facing situations, especially with older family members, they're, where do I go to get these questions answered? So
Right.
you start leading them in the right direction to who do you need to talk about?
Yes. Another thing that a certified senior advisor can do, which kind of leads into our other sort of segue into when do you have the talk with the parents?
Communication with the parents, right.
Sometimes when you're getting the family together and you've got multiple siblings, and then you've got the siblings-in-laws, and maybe some grandkids thrown into the mix, and then you've got the parents. Those types of discussions, when you're starting to talk about personal things and wills and what are you going to do as you get older, they can become a little dicey and a little stressful. They can be stressful for the parents who are getting bombarded with questions from the kids. They can become very stressful for the siblings because they don't necessarily agree.
Different
Even
points of view.
in
We need
the
to do this, we need to do that.
closest
Yeah.
families, doesn't matter. You can be so close, but you still may not agree. You may think, Don over here may think that mom and dad absolutely should downsize and go to the assisted living facility, and Connie, sister over here, is saying, but why don't we get in-home care and let them stay at home a little longer? We don't really need to sell, the farm now. So that is where knowing where there's a certified senior advisor that has an office process that maybe you can say, hey, could we set up some time and come in for a family consultation and actually have the certified senior advisor sort of be the neutral third party and to help with those difficult conversations. It can be a really good way to do it because it pulls people out into a neutral zone, into a neutral surroundings, and it just kind of seems to calm things down, and it allows people to speak more appropriately about what's going on, and also the senior advisor can sort of push some questions in there that need to be answered, and it's coming from them as opposed to a family member.
So it's more objective, giving them points they maybe didn't consider before
Right.
they brought into that situation.
Right.
Well, I know in this series we've talked about the fact that the baby boomer generation's aging, that there's more seniors coming, and growing segment of the population, and as a result of that, the younger generation's getting more involved, perhaps in
Right.
their senior care. So that family awareness being an important part. People might say, well, when do we have this talk? Sometimes, when's the appropriate age? When do you say, hey, mom and dad, how are things going?
Well, and since this is a college program, I encourage even our college age students, 20s, 30s. You might be in a situation where your parents had you at an older age. A lot of the baby boomers had their children older.
Right.
They had careers, and so they waited a little bit longer to have children. So what I'm finding is a lot of times people in their 20s and 30s, I don't want to talk about that right now.
It's way down the road.
It's way down the road, but yet they're sitting there with a 75-year-old parent. So it's not way down the road. Sometimes they can get so involved in their own families and their own small children that it takes a crisis situation before they're going to start looking at what do we do with mom and dad now? How do we go about doing this? And a lot of times they're very ill prepared. They don't understand.
Where do I go? What are we
Right.
looking at? All this
Because-
part of what we're doing in the series is trying to answer
Right,
some of those many questions.
And so I would hope that even people in their 20s and 30s would really pay attention to this program because the earlier that you start talking to your parents, number one, the less invasive it has to be, the less confrontational it will be. Because you can start just generally, I think one of the first questions even a 20 or 30-year-old should ask their parents, even if they're in their 50s, is, Mom, Dad, who have you designated as your power of attorney? Okay, we talked about in another series about the necessity of having a power of attorney if you're over 18 in order to make medical decisions for you. If your parents are in their 50s, 60s, and they're thinking, well, one of my kids can help me out if I get in a car accident or something.
But is it in writing? Right.
Is it in writing? And is the person that they designated, the child, let's say, are they the kid that decided to move to Hawaii?
So the power of attorney is no longer in town to help you out. Right?
Exactly. And does that power of attorney need to be switched to a child who is actually in town? Or has there been some kind of falling out and this child is now not the child that you want making financial decisions for you? There's all kinds of things. And I think the earlier you start discussing, especially those types of things, the wills, the power of attorneys, and showing an interest in your parents' affairs, the easier those conversations are going to go later on. And then you get into sort of the conversations that you may have to have when you think mom and dad are going to need a little bit of additional care.
You see that they can't continue operating or living the way they've been doing things.
And that's kind of a different conversation that you're going to have then finding out about their plans, and their financial plans and things like that. You don't have to get so invasive with that, but do they have a funeral plan? Have they already selected where they want to be buried, and do you know that? Do you know what funeral home that they want to use? Finding that stuff out after something happened in the hospital and now you're looking everywhere for these documents and you have no idea where they're at is not a good time.
Right.
So start early on that. Start, when you're in your 20s, 30s, you finish college, talk to your parents about that stuff. And what are their desires? Because we have a growing epidemic in our country of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Right. And it is hitting people earlier and earlier. I've personally seen people as young as in their 40s starting to get symptoms of Alzheimer's. So if you're a young adult and your parents start actually exhibiting signs of dementia, you may actually have to take over and help that parent sooner rather than later.
A caregiver a lot earlier in your life than you thought might be.
Yeah.
And so having that communication, asking those questions, and it sounds like it's also a technique of how to ask those questions, and not like the parents feel like you're prying into their lives, because people feel that, this is my private material.
Yeah, and you don't ever want to have your parent feel like you are taking away their independence or telling them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, approaching a conversation in a positive manner, and asking how we can help.
Right.
How can we help? Not giving advice is always a more positive way to go about things.
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you? It looks like you're, this week you haven't been able to get in your shower this week. How can I help with that? Is there a way that I can help? Not coming and saying, boy, you really do smell bad. Have you had a shower this week? And then berating them when they say, no, I wasn't going anywhere this week. I didn't feel like taking a shower.
So you really have to find out. And then you talk about the importance of finding out their wishes, the things for their, like you mentioned, their estate, their wills, and that, and even the healthcare. We've talked on this program about healthcare directives and so forth. There's, sometimes people's preferences about staying in the home or going elsewhere afterwards if they need to for care.
And you need to know that. Does your parent, is their wish, when they get to the point of needing help, is their wish, some people want to downsize and move into an independent living or an assisted living. They want, and they've planned for that. Some people do want to stay at home and have in-home caregivers come in, but a lot of times they don't understand even the expense differences with these types of care. So doing a little research ahead of time and finding out financially what they can afford, maybe seeking the help of a good elder law attorney to make sure that the plans are being made to fulfill their wishes. So it's fine for me in my 40s to say, well, when I get to be 85, I really want in-home care. But by the time I'm 85, in-home care could cost, $15,000 a month. Now, my next question from my kid would be, well, Mom, what have you done? Let's look at what you've done
get the money to
prepare for this, and how do we plan on paying for this? And then finding out that there's a plan in place, and if there's not, helping your parents make the connections that they need to get those plans in order.
I'd imagine the financial aspect's probably one of the toughest questions to bring up to people. That
very tough.
The adults and parents are making the money and paying the bills, and the kids never really know how much mom or dad makes and what they've saved, and suddenly you're at the situation of, what do you have?
Well, and there definitely is a sort of transition from being a parent to a child, and then you get to the point where the child, it's not a child anymore, but you actually start needing to parent your parents. So as an adult child,
you're playing the role of guiding your parents versus them guiding you.
You know what? It doesn't mean that you are babying them. It doesn't mean that you're speaking down to them. I hate when I hear that. It just crawls all over me. It means that you are prepared to help that senior walk through this later stage of life when maybe their memory isn't as good. Their decision making can be off even if they don't have dementia. I've noticed with my parents, they don't deal with stress as well as they did when they were younger. Problem solving becomes more stressful and can actually cause them to have medical problems. And so I've noticed my mom, who's the go-getter, solve the problem. She's always been that way in our family. She's always been the matriarch of everything. I see her more coming to me and saying, you know what, sis, would you help me with this, and would you deal with this? I just don't have the patience for this anymore. So hopefully, and what I have done over time with my folks is bring up one of the things you do not want to do is bombard them, and all in one day we're
coming in today to talk to you about everything we want to know.
You watch this show with Judy, and then all of a sudden you take this notebook of questions over there, and your parents are like,
this and this, right?
Where did this come from? Maybe let them watch the show first before you do that. But start talking about it just sort of off the cuff, hey Mom, I was going over my finances today, and I realized that I need to have a budget in place. And I was just wondering, do you and Dad have a budget? You know, what do you work off of? Sort of making it a casual conversation and get them used to talking about these things a little bit at a time, rather than coming in with your big notebook of stuff and suddenly you're sitting down and you're having this big family discussion and you completely overwhelm them, because they can't handle that. They don't want to handle that. And what's going to happen is you're going to end up with them pushing back.
Leave me alone. I don't
Leave
need
me
to tell you
alone.
anything.
I do not need to have this discussion with you right now because I am still your parent. Where if you develop a more communicative relationship, collaborative relationship, you're here to help, especially if you know you're the power of attorney, then that sort of gives you a right, and it should make you want to know more about what your responsibilities are going to be as a power of attorney and what your parents' wishes are. Because a power of attorney, if you've been named power of attorney, it is a serious job that you're going to have, and it's something that you want to be very educated in what your duties are going to be and what you're going to be dealing with.
What you're working with
Yeah.
and so forth. So relating it to your personal experience, maybe experiences of others. You know, John Doe's parents have done this,
Right.
or even just, hey, the stock market went down today. You know, do you have any stocks? How does that affect you?
Exactly. That's
You know,
perfect.
just-
I noticed that your friend, you know, they were in the hospital with a broken hip and they had to go to rehab, and now they're all trying to make decisions about what to do. What do you guys think you'd like to do, and if that situation happened to you? Those are casual conversations that will give you a lot of information without having you stepping on toes.
Well, I know there are a lot of resources, as you mentioned, that people can go online, they can find books. A lot is written about, you know, how to work with your older generation parents and
Right.
so forth. And so educating yourself beyond programs like this, but just
Yes.
knowing those types of things to anticipate. You know, even the homes, I imagine, you know, people have lived in their homes for 40, 50 years, that you've mentioned in programs that, what are we going to do with all this stuff?
What do we
Mom?
do with
You
the
know?
stuff? Right.
You know, what are your wishes?
And I really, I think one of the things, if people could leave from the programming, taking this on as really a commitment to their folks. You know, I look at my folks and I look at how much they've done for me over the many years and the things they have put up with from me and the sacrifices that they have made financially, physically, emotionally, so that I could grow up and have the career that I have the resources that I have available. And I am kind of old-fashioned in that I feel like that it is now an opportunity for me to give back to my folks in helping them through this really important next stage of their life. And I think it's an important role that we play in making this last years of their life very happy for them, joyful occasions, that they don't have to worry about what's coming, and that they know they've got family members that are going to stand behind them and help them through that. That's really comforting to them, especially when they get to the point where their memory is not so good and they don't feel like they have such a great handle on their finances or whatever. And there may be a situation where, in a dementia type situation or Alzheimer's situation, where a family may actually have to step in despite their parents' wishes for them not to step
Just
in.
because it's obvious they can no longer handle that.
Yes.
So there's certain signs that family needs to look for, and I know in other
Yes.
programs we've talked about signs to look for when you might need assisted living and so forth, but just signs to know that, you know, we need to start talking about some things and get things going.
If you start seeing a lot of falls or trips to the hospital, you start getting phone calls that dad has driven somewhere and he doesn't know where he's at and he's lost. And those can be really interesting, because a lot of times if you're talking about a couple, the wife or the husband will actually cover for the spouse.
They don't want to
and
admit it
they
well.
don't want the family to know that there is a problem with dementia, and sometimes they can be even getting there's some abuse can be going on in the home with the person that has the dementia actually hitting the spouse and that kind of thing. And sometimes family lives out of state and they don't know that this is going on. So there's a point in time too when you need to start making more trips home to see what's actually going on at the home.
You mentioned people living out of state, and our society has changed so much. You don't
Yes.
live on the same neighborhood, the same
Right.
town oftentimes as parents. So
Yes.
that dynamics of family structure today, that,
Yes.
you know, through the internet, we can send an email, we can talk over the phone instantly with parents, but still needed to be there to visit personally.
Right. And I think that's too where a certified senior advisor and maybe a home care company can really be your best friend, because if you're in New York or Philadelphia and you're trying to look for care for your parent in Joplin, if you can look up and find a certified senior advisor, find an agency perhaps that's got some awards and whatnot, you can talk to those people or talk to your certified senior advisor and see what they recommend.
Right.
You know, as far as resources in the area, especially when you're out of state.
They're kind of
Can
the
be a big
front
help.
line for you to see what's
Yes.
happening and report back to you if they see changes and
Right.
things that are developing along those lines. So the responsibility of becoming informed, knowing what's going on, and I'm sure, as you mentioned earlier, there's the dynamics of the family as well.
Yes.
You know, maybe you do have some relatives who live close, others that live at a distance.
Right.
And I'm sure that probably generates tensions between the family members, as also perhaps their observation of, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, yes, it is. you know?
Yes, it is, right. And that happens all the time, and that's where a neutral third party can be huge. And, you know, we can do things like pull people on Skype, phone conferences and things if they're not in you know, driving distance, and actually still get the whole family together. But you're right, people have differing opinions, and definitely the siblings who are living closer to the situation know more, and really the siblings who are living further away need to respect the family that's close by, because they're seeing it every day.
They can see what's happening and they know what's going on along
Yes.
those lines. So we've covered a lot of information. I know in this series we're continuing to look at many different aspects, but if you kind of boil it down to the main purpose of trying to make people aware of what we call spotlight on senior issues. What are we wanting people to be aware of, and as they're looking at this situation?
Number one, I think we need to be aware that the senior years are complicated. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And we need to be ready, and we need to be educated so that we make the right decisions for ourselves and our families, but also help make the right decisions for our parents and our grandparents, so that their quality of life can be secured until the day that they pass away. And I think the more knowledge you have, the better it's going to be.
So if someone has a young child, there's all sorts of child rearing books out there that you
That's
can buy
right.
all about it. But what do you need to look at the other end of someone's life?
Exactly, and back in the day, people weren't living that long. People would pass away in their 60s or so, heart attack out in the field, and that was it.
There was no treatment for things like that.
People are living well into their 90s at this point. So now I guess, there are more books and whatnot out about senior issues, because we have a lot of seniors, and most of my clients are over the age of 80, and my oldest client was actually 99 when he passed away.
Wow. Yeah.
So, that's a good long life.
Society says we're all going to continue to live longer as it is.
right.
The babies born today are going to live over 100 according to statistics without any problems. So, well, Kelly, I'd like to thank you very much for sharing some more information on today's program.
Thank you for having me, and I really hope this will be a real resource for the community, and that we'll get lots of phone calls asking more questions.
All right, well, thank you, and I appreciate the viewers for joining us this week as well. We hope we have answered some of your questions you might have on this topic today. I invite you to stay tuned for other programs as we continue to look at senior issues, the spotlight on senior issues. We'll see you then.